Good evening, everyone. We welcome you all to the third session in the analytics series of IAM Community. The topic for the day is retail analytics, disruptions, and trends. The speaker we have with us is Mr. Ajay, and he is the CEO of OrcaBlue.ai, a company which has been doing phenomenal work in the field of data science automation. He will be talking about how retail industry is behaving or how it will change after COVID times, how analytics will play a very big role in the way retail industry works, and he will also be talking about real life use cases which his company has worked on in the field of retail analytics. So over to you, Ajay.
I really appreciate the initiative. Right.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Before we jump into the thing, just to give you a brief overview, I've been essentially working with edtech companies, helping build and scale them, including Edusis and Simplilearn. And given that these were remotely operated businesses where you have to deal with a bunch of courses, categories across various, geographies and segments, right? The only way you could do this with is with a lot of focus on being data driven and having agile operations, right? And essentially now this is something that even the rest of the world is, because of what we're trying to do, is having to adopt in a much more accelerated way. So yeah, so and as part of that, we realized, how difficult it is to do it, right? We used to spend a lot of time, energy, and money to ensure that we can have the right data in place, able to use it for decision making, and actually build that sort of culture where data driven decision making can take place, and such actions are what objectively arrived at, right? But the whole cost and effort and dependency and clunkiness of doing this was so high that when I wanted to start upon my own, I basically started working with some friends who were dealing with a lot of analytics with retail and FMCG companies, right? And that's how we started this whole journey towards simplifying this, right? So yeah, so let me get into the topic. Let me share my screen. Yeah, right. So what we're going to cover here today is how do we get up retail analytics in the entire scenario where that we are living, where whole commerce is going to be digitalized, right? And so what we're going to be looking at is first thing, take a short look at how COVID and e-commerce are impacting retail, and how analytics needs to have take some notes from them, right? And how can we rethink retail analytics, on the lines of data, digital, personal, and agile, right? Which are what enables e-commerce to do such a great job, even given the churning kind of market conditions that we have, right? And what I've also done is, in addition to trying to get you guys information about what is happening from what, say, McKinsey says to what media says to a lot of other things, I also reached out to one of our delivery partner and seed investor, right, who works with a lot of retail and FMCG companies. And took a bunch of use cases that they've recently working on, so that we can take a look at them as well, right? So yeah, so everybody knows that COVID has been really transformational on how we live and do things, right? Due to the kind of penetration that e-commerce has had, right? People said it would take 10 years. Those things have been achieved over the first 2-3 months of COVID and lockdowns, right? Telemedicine, which people thought is something of the future, is right now in some markets even doing as good, or at scales which is comparable to offline, right? Or you have remote working. Everybody is currently working remotely. Companies which or were very hesitant or very unwilling, or did not need to be digital or working remotely, are now all having to do it, right? And your entire, from colleges to school, everything, it's very transformational on how we are learning and how we are entertaining ourselves, right? And some of these changes are obviously going to be temporary, whereas some of them are going to be things that are enduring changes, right? And this is a kind of a framework which McKinsey put out, where you can see that right, whereas there are some possible areas where consumption will decline, or and there are a lot of areas where there'll be a shake-up of preferences, in the sense that people are now choosing different lifestyles and different ways of consuming and working, right? And but what is undeniable, as you can see, is that the push towards digital acceleration, right? And this is something that everybody is becoming more and more clear, writing on the wall, that this is going to be really enduring, right? So that means this is going to be a really big shift in how we all have been living and doing business, given that retail accounts for such a large slice of the pie. It is definitely going to come be very different from how it was 5 years ago, right? And that's why we if we take a but at the same time, if we take a look at what's happening, like retail is such a big pie, right? And all of us buy and consume, and many of us even work for retail, right? What is the industry outlook, right? As soon as this whole thing happened, right, the immediate impact was that e-commerce spending went up by 30%, right? And whereas there was a decline in retail, this thing, you'll expect, yes, there's a lot of people are not going out shopping and other things, right? But now it's few months down the line, right? US especially did not have too many lockdowns, right? But the kind of projected growth for the end of the year, if you see, you can see that what everything is in red, right? More everything in retail is in red, right? The only thing that I think people are redecorating their houses, drinking, and shopping online, right? That's what it looks like. But everything else is in red, right? And to take it to say a less mature market like India, right? Like for example, if you look at media, what is, for example, for the festive season, right? Festive seasons is supposed to be very resilient to any sort of negative trends or dampening effects, right? And this is where India recovers, right? You can see that most sentiments around retail are pretty, saying, कि, हाँ, things are getting cut, retail will recover, there will be a revival, right? People are saying, हाँ, 80%, let's try and hopefully cover, right? And at the same time, and this is a massive pie, $780 billion pie, right? At the same time, in e-commerce, it is a very small pie, right? People are really optimistic, right? So banks are giving offers, and they're expecting an 84% growth for this festive season, which is pretty much doubling, right? And you see that this is a very small pie. This is 7 billion. So it's like not. It is not that e-commerce is taking away all the business from retail, but it looks like retail is probably leaving a lot of money on the table, right? And potentially they can take some stuff about how e-commerce is doing business to to get some of it, right? And that is the real elephant in the room, right? Because if you think about, why are two industries, right, that are selling the very same products to the very same customers, reacting so differently to the same market conditions, especially when they're going to be enduring, right? And this is a question I feel that is has been asked at a superficial level for many years, and saying, कि, हाँ, whole retail has to become omnichannel, digital commerce, this, that, everything. But right now, this is the elephant in the room, right? Everybody who's working in retail or retail analytics need to be asking, hey, why is this so different, right? And if you and what is the solution then, right? Before we jump into what is different, what is the solution for retail, right? McKinsey says that whenever customer experience is the most resilient competency during tough times and recovery periods, right? And you can see that the kind of returns are 3x for somebody who can provide that kind of great customer experience compared to somebody who's laggards, right? So in a lot of these digital things that have now been super accelerated, retail is in some ways lagging compared to say e-commerce and a lot of other ways of modern ways of doing business, right? And that means that if you do not invest and do not do this, your returns are going to be much lower in this space than what people who are taking the lead in using the latest of tech and operations and capabilities to deliver the kind of CX that is resilient, right? And so what are so again, so what is McKinsey saying? Hey, say, hey, double down on digital, right? they say inject innovation into omni-channel. You've been saying omni-channel, but start investing, start actually getting things live and up and running and working and helping business, right? And again, transform store operations, right? Reimagine the physical network. This is more on the retail strategy side, where I'm sure a lot of overhauling of formats to the way, especially a very mature market like the US has to do, right? But overall, they say that embrace an agile operating model, right? And that is the way e-commerce and startups work. They're very iterative. They're very they know that it's going to be a chaotic scene. They're prepared for it, and they keep iterating until they can get to the objective, right? And we'll have to really take a this thing that retail analytics will never be the same again, right? It's never going to be the same again, right? It was something that was used as decision support. It was something that was used as a good thing to do. That was something that people built as a a good capability. But right now, it's going to become core, right? And because it essentially boils down to the question that can your teams take data-driven decisions and actions for your customer at the speed of e-commerce, right? Can they? Right? It's an honest question you will have to ask, right? And might be a lot of history why they cannot, and there's a lot of reasons why you maybe do not need to, but now you need to, right? And everybody needs to ask this one simple question, but at the same time, this simple question has a lot of angles to it, because that it's not so easy, right? Because it means that is your leadership really committed and investing in the right way, right? Does it mean your employees are oriented and have the right kind of culture to do that kind of data-driven decision making, right? Are you accumulating and validating all the right data that you need, or are you just accumulating the data that is easy, or it has been there, or your partners are giving, and do you have really a very well-defined and objective metrics and goal system, or KPI system that that your decision makers can actually use for data-driven decision making, right? And even if they take those decisions, are your operations agile and flexible to act on that and actually uh, give that value to the customer and benefit from it as well, right? And are you able to really connect with your customer, right? And do you understand it, right? And this is something, for example, you'll realize that retail has more customers. It's been selling to us all this time, right? The last few months, imagine the lockdowns. Yes, it's all shut right now. Things have opened up, right? Which of your retailers who's actually where you shop a lot and has actually given you a call? How difficult is it, right? At the same time, how much Amazon or Flipkart is putting an effort to reach out and connect and give you the kind of deals you want. Find out, hey, this guy's an electronic guy, he's bought 2 electronics things before, let's show him these exact offers that he wants. So there is a wealth of, or a potential of data and information that retail has, but it is not really leveraging to actually reach out and work with the customer, right? And speed, right? Can your teams actually do this at the speed that is required, right? And not as a a 6-month process or a 1-year process where you say, okay, iska jo aayega, when the interns come in, they will do this project and we will take that inputs, give it to those. No, that's, you cannot work it like this. These are things that you need to be solving on the go, right? And that is how you will be able to can you use your entire data and scale and exploit it, right? And actually win this game in the way, rather than continue to allow people who are taking the lead on this to take disproportionate chunks of the future market. Yeah. So what is it that is different in e-commerce, right? And you'll if we just I've broken it down into 4 simple things, right? Because sometimes I mean, in the way that I could understand it, right? In the sense that I think that one very clear thing is that e-commerce is clearly very digital, right? It didn't matter that everything is shut down, right? Their operations could run, right? In fact, scale up, right? They could go deliver to their customers. They could talk to their customers. They know that they can, and how on various digital channels they're reaching out, ensuring that they're getting the kind of eyeballs that they need, right? And data, right? Data is something that e-commerce has clearly placed a lot more relevance to, because without that you cannot operate in an e-commerce setup, right? In retail, there are some other reasons why you can be you could have been, or you are a successful retail brand, right? But in e-commerce, you need a lot of data on customers and your operations, and that is where they clearly are ahead of the game, right? And again, when it comes to personal, right, and because of the fact that they are digital and they have all this data, right, they're able to provide much more personal experiences to use that data to have really efficient operations, right? And actually have the ability to deliver and give that kind of experience that the customer wants, right? And ultimately, to do all this, they need really agile supply chains, right? Which know that, hey, things are always going to be changing, things are always going to be this thing, and they know that, hey, given whatever this thing, we know how we have the capabilities to pivot or reshape how we need for the market, right? So that's the thing, right? Like, for example, even in India, for example, say kind of e-commerce, when it was hit with regulation saying, hey, you guys need to be a marketplace, you don't need to be this thing, right? They immediately had, right, a massive, incubated set of vendor ecosystem, right? Which was Cloudtail and your entire bunch, which was, there talking and giving them and not allowing the ball to drop, rather than saying, we will sort this out in the next financial year, right? So that's the kind of, I feel, these are the four things in which ways in which I feel e-commerce has taken the lead, and retail, by the virtue of its size, if it adopts these things, it can make a very smooth transition to and that's what analytics is going to be a core function for retail. There is no escaping that, right? And that means analytics itself also has to change, right? It has to be very business first and iteration ready culture, right? You have to be working with business folks, giving them the value so that they can again reinvest, right? That's how they reinvest in sales. That's how they reinvest in operations, right? So that's how you will have to start working, right? And to do that, you need to have really solid capabilities and teams that are able to handle these kind of different scenarios, new technologies, new this kind of solutions that need to be created and put out, right? And as you make these plans, right, right now, a lot of, for example, transformation budgets, how much ever you scale them up, there's so many things that need to be done, right? So it is very important that whatever you are continuing to invest in, right? These are future ready approaches which have a lot of optionality, right? Because if you do things looking backward, you might end up with a lot of costs, and even down the line you'll face even more costs, to go ahead, right? So it's better to, because the kind of way in which we do business, the way in which we work with partners, marketplaces, or APIs, the way in which we our teams are working, everything is changing. So it's better to have tech that is interoperable, probably the kind of tech that is very cloudy, SASE, it depends on the kind of need that is there. But always ensure that you're taking approaches that are future looking, and it's worth doing the jump, right? And that's why you'll have to rethink and reinforce your entire data journey, right? And because it's like, for example, anything that is of value to the business, however complicated, difficult, messy, or whatever it is, it has to get sorted, and it has to get into the various stages or parts of the data journey that needs to be there, because that is really going to help your business, or it's actually going to help you give that holistic value to business, right? And to do this, right, you will have to and to actually get more and more buying from your stakeholders, as well as ability to invest in this, you will have to execute high impact and high ROI solutions, because right now when things are very chaotic, it's dangerous also to get into large commitments for large this thing, rather than that it's always break down things so that you hit them in milestones, so that you can show high impact, high ROI, and then scale it up, right? That is should always be the approach in whatever steps that you take, right? And now I think this will end with more of the Gyan part, right? And now we will get into, when we talk about data, right? We will talk about these four things that we were talking about: data, digital, personal, and agile, right? What I've done is I've taken a couple of hot trends that are happening in the market, and a couple of case studies from our delivery partner who works, like I said, with the large retail and FMCG. I've taken most of the case studies from a very large sports retailer. Most of you should have stopped there. Right? So yeah, I'll just get. So first thing is data, right? And in data, couple of hot things. One thing that is needs to happen at war footing is that doesn't matter what sort of data it is, right? Where it is coming from, it is SaaS, it is files, it is cloud, it is migration is needed, some APIs are needed, whatever is needed, it has to be done. Luckily, there are a bunch and ton of companies that have heavily invested in this space, right? Depending on whether you're looking at, say, something like, marketing data, there's Funnel or Kivo, or, or depending on the space, there are a lot of companies that have invested and created some amazing tech where, you can ingest and integrate or, aggregate hundreds of data sources, right? So it's all out there, right? And it will just simplify the way you guys can do business, right? And it's you guys, everybody needs to be, on a war footing, needs to be sorting this out, right? So that yeah. Another thing is effortless data discovery and collaboration, right? Now that you have all of this data, right? If you have to first get the data, connect to the data sources, prep the data, do some analysis, figure out some insights, finally, capture those insights in form of some dashboards, and then finally share those dashboards after, testing. This is a very, very messy process. By then, the game has changed, right? So you need to have very effortless data discovery and collaboration in place, right? And so these are two things where when you're doubling on data, these are two things that you cannot really escape from. And there's a lot of value because it's rather than treating data as something that, is good to have as a, as a resource where, when decisions need to be made, we will take a look at it. It's really time to start thinking about how digital commerce and e-commerce thinks of data as an asset, right? And they think about, hey, we have so much data, we know so many customers, how best can we get stuff out of it, right? And does it, right? And to get into some recent case studies, I will not get into the depth of these, but I will just touch upon them. Like, for example, this is something that our partner did for the sports retailer for the last couple of years, and this is something that is evolving and changing, right? What I wanted to here highlight rather than the specific pieces is that your entire data architecture is going to get complicated, right? There is no running away. There are a variety of needs, right? Coming down from needing to things, there are data that needs to be, for example, used only on a one ad hoc basis. There is data that needs to be available on a regular basis for your analysis. There might be some data that needs to be, be working with the operational analytics model so that it can feed into your digital systems, right? So these require all different tools, require different pipelines, require different kind of approaches. Sorry, the world has gotten complicated. At the same time, right, it's gotten simpler as well. It's becoming easier and easier to try and work with all these pieces together, right? And that's what we do, right? Depending on their data sources, they're aggregated at various levels, ingested at various levels, right? Stored in the form of lakes or data marts at various levels, and then depending on whatever tools need to be plugged in and pull from those sources, that the various frameworks are plugged in and used, right? And this is a very ongoing thing, right? We will, so that's the whole way. You need to start, if you're not doing, if you're not using some of these names that you see here already, then it's like, I'm sure you are, right? At the same time, this is just a sample set. Like, even this has grown to even more complicated thing over the last couple of quarters with them, right? Because of the fact that they want even more of their data sources, given that they're working remotely plugged in, right? And the next part is, for example, coming to data-driven data discovery, right? Now, once this is something that is an ongoing pilot with them, because they have invested heavily in a lot of business intelligence tools, and they're a pretty data-driven company, but they've realized that the number of data sources that are coming in and the number of changes that are happening to the whole, their metrics, to the ability to how fast they need to sometimes pull ad hoc reports, is getting really expensive and dependency creating, right? So that's why they've been looking for something that can make it much more effortless for their teams, right? Whether it's shop floor executives or for category managers or for finance teams, so that they can get what they want, right? And for that, for example, this is a startup that we work on, right? We've basically piloted here. I'm showing you a simple demo of our tool, right? On how they are will be able to experience and use it, right? Right now, anybody in their business teams can ask whatever question they want, right? Build whatever reports they want, right? And all with a few words or clicks, right? They will not have to depend on any sort of a data analyst time or their own time in crunching or creating even the most complicated reports that you can think of, right? And not just that it is effortless for users. It's a data assistant. It is trained, it understands data sources, it understands your metrics. So it's effortless for the enterprise also. Normally, for example, if you add a new data source or if you add a new calculated metric that you need to add, all they need to do right now is raise a support ticket, and within a day or two, the data assistant is retrained with the new data source for calculated metric, right? So that their business teams don't have to, say, okay, hey, let's catch up next week with the data, but actually deep dive within the meeting and get their stuff done, right? Anybody can run their ad hoc queries within a few minutes, right? People can create their own reports, dashboards, so that initiatives are not waiting on the data team, right? And the data team capacity also is now, rather than used for all these funky data secretarial data mashing work, is can be now used for high value sources, because they don't have to put any efforts in adding more and more data sources, right? So that's the kind of solutions that on the data front that we've been working on, right? Coming to the next piece, which is retail analytics has to understand digital, right? And what that means is there is a lot of data coming in, right? You will ingest it, you will make it discoverable, but is it enough, right? Because a lot of data coming from a lot of sources might be messy, might not be matchable, might not have a lot of enrichment is possible, right? So all this, right? This is augmented data management, right? Like, how do I manage my data, augment it, connect it, ensure that it is much more valuable as an asset, right? And this is something, for example, companies like MechBot, a bunch of other players are enabling, right? And another thing is that even after you do all this, how do you really communicate to the rest of your company? Because there are so many moving pieces. Something that a decision that a business a category manager takes, has an impact on operations to a bunch of other things, right? And especially now, if you're saying that, hey, people are going to take data-driven decisions based on all this data that is connected, and taking that, they need to understand the implications of how this is all connected, how this is all works. There needs to be a lot of enterprise knowledge that needs to be created, right? And also something called yeah,
Ajay, we
yeah,
lost you. Can you please repeat? I mean, I could hear till we need to see where how the data is connected.
got it, got it. Sorry, yeah. So I think you're talking about augmented data management, right?
No, no, I just said the voice broke down for like 1 or 2 minutes. So if you could
Okay,
just
not a
repeat,
problem.
yeah,
Yeah,
that the
not a
data is connected till that it was audible. Yeah.
not a problem. So yeah, even once the data is connected, enriched, right, and enabling your distributed remotely working users to actually take these decisions, because once you connect and make it in form of data, it loses its. I mean, it has a lot of objective things associated with, a lot of subjective contextual things are lost out, right? But these are critical to people who are remotely working and taking these decisions which impact each other, right? So companies have to invest a lot in ensuring that this enterprise data knowledge is accumulated. There is a new term called enterprise knowledge graph, right, which is a bunch of these enterprise knowledge pieces that you have to put together, so that your users can have the ability to answer their questions, right? Not just from a data perspective, but also from a perspective of, hey, what is happening, why did, for example, how is another team that they're going to impact operating, right? Or for example, why have they doing what they're doing, right? So these are questions and things that you'll have to enable, right? And for this, yeah, so this is still an upcoming space. There are a few companies that are trying out, but again, this is something that I feel is going to be really valuable for especially the larger companies, right? And getting this right is really essential because you otherwise, how are you going to ensure that a few tens of thousands or lakhs of employees are working remotely, taking these decisions, optimizing for all these goals that you have set them, but at the same time, not the plot is not being lost, right?
So I'm sorry, but I like the last one.
Hmm.
So can you please go to the last slide? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we trying to do? This unstructured, structured, and I mean all these types of data, they're going in this enterprise knowledge graph.
Yeah.
So you are just saying that we are collecting all different types of data
No,
and
no,
then we
no.
are giving analytics questions. Is that what we are saying?
This is another capability that so these are all capabilities that people are investing in, right?
Okay, fine.
So
Yeah,
for
got it.
example, augmented data management is one thing, right? Similarly, enterprise knowledge graph, right? This is still an upcoming area. This is something that's going to be probably rephrased and broken down better. This is something that is being attacked by some of the more academic to some of the more larger innovation arms of the companies, right? Because it only, like for example, companies like Amazon, right? For example, they have
No,
lakhs of
I didn't
employees.
understand what is
No,
this
no, no, no,
enterprise knowledge graph? Is it social like we are doing graph analytics? Is it that
no, 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 no.
graph based?
That's what I'm
No.
trying to tell you. I'm saying, for example, Amazon has lakhs of employees sitting remotely, and they're doubling their business in a lockdown time, right? How are they able to do it, right? It's
Okay.
not just because they have these, what do you call technical systems in place, and there are data tools, right?
Yeah.
They're able to take these decisions which impact each other and coordinate across all these and scale. You understand that requires a lot of understanding how other parts of the company work, how when you see data from those parts of the company, what it essentially means, right?
Got it.
You need to know how they are operating on a day-to-day basis if they have made a change, right? And that is something that you not just need to know, but you need to understand why they've made the change, right? So that you
Yeah.
incorporate it when you are taking your decisions, right?
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
enabled by a variety of things, right? For example, something like they might have a bunch of wikis. These days, there are tools which enable enterprise search so that you can search across your enterprise documents, right?
Yeah.
Then there are mapping tools so that you can actually map this what they say is the entire knowledge graph, so that somebody can get a high level overview of how everything is working and fitting in, right?
Got it.
So
Got it.
it's a that's why it's a more subjective field. It's still being sorted out. But essentially, how do we enable this distributed and contextual decision making? Right.
Sure.
So that's the So here, as part of, for example, augmented data management, for example, social media data, right? You get a little bit of social media data. You know that get a lot of data actually. But is that
Yeah.
all the data you want? Right? No. Sometimes you want to know, hey, what are my guys thinking? What are they feeling? What are my users thinking in that specific area about a specific sport? Right? Now that is something that you can do, right? But for that nobody is giving you that data. You will have to enrich and augment that data, right? We will, right? So that is what, for example, here we put in place, right? How do we take all their social media content, right? Analyze it and give them sentiment analytics, right? Which is broken down according to their geos, sports, right? And their stores and store zones and all these other things, so that it's actually usable, right? So that's one of the things. For example, we worked on about 18 months back, I think, right? And say, for example, another thing, right? How do we, for example, like use, for example, something like this, right? So sometimes you say that, hey, some of these ideas that come are very, good to hear, but you think that, hey, this is not really practical and workable, right? But essentially now you have to go down and do it, right? Now, for example, a subjective problem, right? Like, for example, they needed to figure out how do you do this marketing spend, because they have these large stores. So they have, a sort of a catchment area, right? And you need to maximize the penetration in that area for that large store to make money, right? And how do you, one is obviously saying, hey, you concentrate on that area, do it, but how do you improve the ROI, right? Otherwise, you will keep spending money, you will keep getting some results, you'll again spend some money, you'll get some results. Like, how do we make it tractable, right?
So for example, here we went to the extent of geotagging, mapping everything, right? So that depending on where something has been spent, right? Because for example, if you have visited a bunch of five gyms, right, and spent a little bit of money and activity there, right, and who goes to a gym? People who are in that even smaller surrounding area, right? So you know that when people from that area start buying more, that actually what money you're spending on those five gyms is actually paying out, right? This is from you having to just do it as a mystery shopper or as a intern project or as a one-time dipstick. This is something that you can have live and ongoing, so that you can confidently spend like how you're spending on digital, right? So this is what when we mean ki, hey, like here there is no knowledge graph as such, but you have to have this understanding and actually connect it and make it work with this variety of stakeholders, so that actually from having this uh, idea to actually ensuring that it is usable to actually it is an operational and people are willing to probably spend more money next time on something like this. All right.
So basically, we are identifying the areas which need more attention, and
Yes.
we have customized marketing campaigns for
Yes.
different areas, right?
Like for example, you can even see, hey, these are the gyms that I spent money on, right? What return I got, you can track, right? So that's that's the kind
So
of power. Like normally how
you
you
are
get it on
saying,
digital.
yeah, I get it. So basically, we are using the visualization tools, right? Like Power BI, Tableau, or Orca Blue, or any
It's not,
Q
but it's not just, yeah, it is not just the tool, right? Because, for example, when even like, for example, in the previous thing I told, it's about, for example, ensuring that, see, the tool is there, right? But the tool will only, what you feed into it is important, right? That is the first
I know,
thing.
that's true.
And then
Yeah,
how
yeah,
you
of
use it.
course,
Right? You
of
understand that
course.
is
Yeah,
that missing part is the knowledge graph, is what I'm talking.
that's true. That's true. Of course, I mean, what metrics you will use, what way you will process that data, that of course matters. The way you
Yes.
will present it. Yeah,
Yes,
that.
because somebody who's a offline marketer would rarely get this kind of a dashboard, which usually an digital ad marketer will get, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
and it is then that is why they'll be confident to say, "Okay, huh, but not 20 lakhs, let's put 40 lakhs because see, I can spend it right in these areas, right?" Otherwise,
Yeah.
you cannot make the case for that kind of a thing, right? It's much easier to make these kind of
Can we
business.
zoom in? Yeah, can we zoom into those metrics so people can just see the kind of, dashboards that are there? Is it possible?
Uh,
Just, I mean, okay, let it, if there is no zoom, then, I mean, just for their knowledge,
can
like we
you see
can
it? I
just
think
see, yeah, yeah, I think it's visible, yes. So we can just go to the next slide and we can, view the individual dashboards because they are quite interesting.
yeah. Got it, right? Like basically
Yeah,
wherever they spend on, those have been tagged. Where their store location has been tagged, those have been created, demarcated into zones. Then
yeah.
depending on how you're spent in those catchment areas for each of them have been defined, right?
Mm.
And then you have basically, then you're able to track because you already have demographic data on your customers. You have your purchase data of customers because when in the sports retailer when you have to buy, you have to give your contact, right? So they have the data, right? So they're using all of this so that you finally know that, hey, do I now target female gyms more in this area or male gyms, right? Even that is the kind of
Yeah.
a decision that you can take, right? Which is really, really powerful, right?
Yeah, so I think
So,
most of our users would know the use cases, but the thing which will be definitely a very big value add would be the dashboards that you're showing, because that's what will help them a lot, as in,
oh,
to prepare their own dashboards
definitely,
using
definitely,
existing tools.
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely. I think, yeah. So, yeah.
yeah,
You want me to take a look at these also?
yeah, I think so because they look
These are
good.
the
So
social media ones, right? Because you tend to usually get a lot of
yeah,
but ultimately people want more of sentiments and those kind of things that need to be tracked,
correct.
right? This is very
Yes,
early stage thing. This has gone past many more this thing, and it is much more granular now. But
yeah,
I can see that if you are spending on certain these things, or you can also track what certain trends or things that you want to track on and who's spending on them, right? You can see that Big Bazaar is spending a lot of money or is spending at least getting a lot of engagement on Twitter around these
yeah.
kind of things, right? So you can keep a track of your competitors in a very, how do I put it, in an effortless and systematic way if you do this, rather than, leaving it to the instinct or the kind of one-time lipstick that we tend to end up doing in a lot of cases, right?
So
So
what
if
is
it
the
is done,
story we are trying to build here? Like I can understand that the tweet analysis we are trying to find the okay, we can go from
so
here
here it's
also.
competitors. They want to see what their competitors are doing on social
Okay.
media, so that they can also strategize on what to communicate on, because they believe in a lot of their audience engagement, right? So they
Hmm.
want to keep a track of what their audiences are engaging on and what their
Hmm.
competitors are engaging on. So
And
rather than
also the popular thing hashtags on obviously on Twitter and all, and how we are maybe faring against that. For the popular hashtags, where do we as a company lie? Are we also, I don't know, addressing those type of topics or not? Is that also something that the companies would be interested in?
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. So this is something that was the initial cut of things. Post this, I think they've even gone to ensure that tracking by sports, by geo, that kind of thing, so that if they know that, hey, because there are a lot of these trending local social sports events that they want to capitalize and get them onto that. They have a community engagement app,
Yeah,
right? So
true,
that's why they
true.
want to invest down the line in that area. So the social media analytics thing, again, like I said, it's iterative. This is
Um,
like we keep adding according to whatever they need, right?
so they
So
can know where to invest further.
yeah,
Agreed. Yeah, and where
right.
they're
So that,
lacking compared to
so that
competitors. Yeah.
yeah, so
Hmm.
that they know that, hey, in Sarjapur area, it's better to invest on badminton and say football, and say cricket
Yeah.
is more where in another area you will invest on cricket and it's indoor sports or something else, right? So that's
Yeah. So I see a slicer also at the on the right somewhere. So I think we are also slicing by I'm not sure what. It's either this one in the
Yeah,
tweet
so usually,
analysis.
yeah. So usually, all the dashboards that we give, whatever how it happens is since these are enterprise, this is the enterprise scene. So they usually we work with their stakeholders to ensure that whatever quick cuts that they want to see, right? There it will be there always, right? So that they can choose those things and kind of. This is more of a simpler one for social media analytics, but
Yeah, I
otherwise,
get it. So
the other
basically,
one,
people can, slice and dice by a month.
yeah.
As in, you can select the month for which you want to see the data, and it will dynamically
Yes,
change, or the
yes, yes,
people
yes.
or site and all. Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
That's right. And if you just want to do one of the other one, this I think you guys were able to see the video, right?
Yeah, yeah, this is fine.
That is
Yeah,
fine. I think then I think they've covered that.
yeah.
Yeah. So another thing that getting back to our third pillar, right? That retail analytics has to get really personal, right? And retail has been selling to a lot of us for ages. Has our data, has our shopping histories lying in some DB somewhere stored on maybe some systems, but they clearly don't act like they know and they can talk to us at a pace with which modern constraints and modern capabilities are enabling, right? And to do that, one of the hottest things that has been happening in the retail space, where I'm guessing a lot of you might have even worked on and probably will know much more than me about, right, is customer data platforms, right, where see, ultimately there is data, but how is that data stored? How is that? How do we look at data, right? Usually, data that comes from most of our existing traditional systems is transaction based, right? It is operations based, right? And that is why that's one way of looking at things, right? Another way of looking at things is from the angle of a customer, because there is so much data about your each individual customer sitting at various parts of your org and tech, right? So how do we start looking at customers as entities rather than data points, right? So that these entities can have can be segmented, classified, have attributes. You can then take them through various different journeys that you want on various channels, right? The digital channels or sales outreach channels or any other channels that are available for you, all right? So this is that you would have heard a lot of companies like Segment, to a lot of them, right? Which I think Twilio recently acquired a few days ago for a hefty sum, right? So this is something that I mean, a lot of the bigger companies have started already adopting, and some of the SaaS tools also have started providing it in a lighter way. But ultimately, you need to be able to know each of your customers so that you can, because it right now customer is not coming to you, right? You need to go to the customer through various ways, or get him to come to you, and all of this ultimately costs effort and money. So how do you figure out on who to spend on and who not to spend on, right? And the time of spray and pray is not going to work for a lot of your budget, right? You need to be really sharp, right? And one way of getting sharp is through very clear customer data segmentations and clearly tracking your customer cohorts and your this thing, right? Yeah, right. And another thing is data science automation, right? So you can right now, existing even say, right, what the plan was, like you'll identify a use case, you'll say, yeah, this data needs to be sorted out for this. Then for this, when it actually needs to go, like all this ETL needs to be sorted out, then you'll have that feature engineering happening. Then they will actually build that thing. Then actually they will train it on the data. Then finally they will plug in some visualization modules and then push it into production, right? This space is not really not going to work, right? Because you have e-commerce where they know exactly in a matter of minutes they can roll out their offer, right? Which they know where it's trending, right? They know which products are being bought and how to show it to the next exact bunch of people who have a very, very high propensity to buy that, right? All this you need to be able to right, if you want to really take data driven actions at scale, you need to have data science automation, right? I'm sure people have started investing here and there lukewarmly, but I mean, this has to take the kind of seriousness or importance that ultimately people give to a CRM or something like that, right? Because like I said, this whole data function, the analytics function is going to be core, right? Yeah. So here, for example, one of the things that we did along these lines, this is a little older case story, but then this has again like evolved to a lot of granularity and effectiveness on how they want to use it, right? But essentially, from all the data, one of the things that we did about a couple of years back is how do you identify the sports user, right? Because there is a somebody who's made a purchase, right? It's a bunch of things. It's sometimes for you, it is sometimes for your school, sometimes it is for your children, it is sometimes for your brother and you. There's a lot of scenarios, right? And if you're not going to be able to understand who are these users and how do they use these things that are being bought from you, right? You will always be left at a basket level analysis, right? And you'll not. So that's why where we had to do a lot of work to ensure that work with them and create and understand and create these exact segments and cohorts and understand how these various consumers for various sports behave differently, various places behave differently, and do a lot of work on ensuring that there have these clear insights, some rules to what you call more than that understanding to take and make future plans, right? So this was an exercise to ensure that understand that who is actually the user, how do we break down, right, into users, their relationships, their affiliations towards sports, right? Their ways in the models of how do I put it, their activity styles to their purchase styles, right? So creating these various buckets, understanding them so that they can be sharper in the way they do offers, sharper in the way they stock their items, right? Be sharper in the kind of engagement people they engage, right? Like, because for example, through this you start realizing that, hey, right, there are people who do this. There's this one bunch who specifically does this, and specifically another bunch who does this, right? You need to then cater to both these bunches, then you can maximize, because these are the two largest cohorts within that niche small sport, right? So that's the thing, right? So for example, one thing that can never be solved as part of all this is why so many tennis balls are bought, and tennis balls are the largest bought item, right? It's by far the highest selling item on the store always, right? But and that's just the thing. It's probably used for a very, very different. But because it's a low cost item. But otherwise, for a lot of other sports, to a lot of other things, a lot of clarity has been given to how they stock shelves, to how they market, and how they take decisions.
So yeah, so basically we are talking about hyper segmentation and
Yes.
clustering. We are understanding people, like which type of people behave the same way, and we are grouping them together.
Yes. Because this is a large store format, a lot of group buying happens,
Yeah.
right? And because of that, I mean, if you just analyze it as that as a customer, then you'll it's like somebody, a grandpa is buying a walking stick and or something for his
Yeah, I
grandson. Right? And
understand.
like, hey,
Yeah.
things that are bought together, right? So,
Yeah, like children would
but you
be,
need to
I
know
mean,
why
if
exactly they
we,
are bought
yeah,
together, right? So that is very
yeah.
important, right? So that's the thing. So that's where a lot of and because they're a multinational org, a lot of the things that they've started doing here, they've started, especially on this front, they started using it in other markets, and they're expressed interest to start taking this up to other subsidiaries across the globe as well, right?
Yeah, so basically, like, I mean, football fans will buy different things, cricket fans will buy different things, children will buy different things, adults will buy different things. So we are just
Yeah,
trying to separate people into different target groups and making customized strategies for them.
yeah,
That to sum it up, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And say, for example, this is something that is more common, which I think I'm sure a lot of you guys would have come across in your org, building a recommendation engine, right? So now, based on all these users segmented cohorts and how they behave and what they do, one is taking your basic insights and decisions, right? But what is more powerful is plugging this exact granular insights into their uh, they have a what do you call an e-commerce app, right? Plugging it to that, right? So that their the kind of recommendations that the app gives becomes better, right? The kind of basket size increases, the conversion increases, your conversion for new users or for marketed campaign users increases. So that was part of the thing here, right? Here, for example, with all that enriched data set and user segmentation intelligence that we had.
One second. Sorry guys, I think you guys lost me. Now I'm audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay.
So yeah, we understood that recommendation engine. I mean, it recommends people what they should buy based
So
on their
they
past purchase history,
yeah, just
right?
it's a module that exploits all this for their existing mobile app, right? And also they have another app which they want to, where they connect and engage with sports fans. So they are also figuring out what are the things to do is something that is now part of the process.
So recommendation engine is this only, right? In the past, I have brought cricket balls, and if I now come to the store, I will be. I mean, the retail person knows that I am very likely to buy a cricket ball because I
No,
always buy.
that is the simpler. Yes, that is yes, a simple way of.
Simplest
Yes,
like
yes.
way. Of course, that is the most simple. I mean, there would be group of things you buy. At different times, you buy different things. Yeah.
Here, you, for example, you also know that this user is essentially possibly a family, a father with two kids who, play these three sports, whereas the
Yeah.
father is in this, right? You have
Yeah.
this mapping, right? And
Yeah.
that obviously gives you a lot of benefit in like saying when you choose to, when that guy logs in for the first time in the app, then it is, if he sees those three, four sports that his family is interested in, right? That is what is going to,
Yeah.
right? So that is very powerful in
Yes.
the efficiencies of your various funnels, right? On a
Correct. Correct.
basis, right? Not just in decision. That's
That's true. That's true. That's very valid.
right. And yeah, coming to our last pair, which is retail analytics, definitely needs to be agile, right? Operations and not just analytics. Whole operations needs to be agile, and you need to be able to work in this new scenario, right? And for this, one thing that a lot of large retail companies are heavily investing is process intelligence, right?
basically you would have heard first things like process mapping, so that you know actually what is happening or how you know things happen in the organization, right? Which was what how your ERPs and your various whatever tools are built, right? And then they collect all this data, and then you start doing process mining, right? So that you can take decisions and say, hey, last year when we during winter we tend to pile up on beverages. We should cut down our autumn purchases in beverages, right? So that our stock can be better used for winter supplies, maybe, right? And from there, now you are moving to process intelligence, so that which eventually will lead to something which is almost like it's obviously a never-ending journey to have a digital twin of your enterprise, right? Because so that you have a full 360-degree view of how you're operating, where something it's like if for example if some distribution has not happened in a particular area, you clearly know which is that specific step and which are those 7 stakeholders involved with that who's has an issue and needs help or needs to be sorted out, right? Rather than you having to depend on a lot of subjective information passing and decision making, which obviously leads to inefficient ways in which you will take decisions or how speed you can operate, right? Because you will then wait for your monthly or weekly things to say that, hey, what happened? Then he's like, we will tell you next week, and then next week comes and says, oh, we did an analysis, it turned out to be business team or this BD team. Then they're like, okay, what should we do? We'll like tell you next week. Here you know exactly.
Ajay, there is some problem with the internet. I don't know. Okay, we got it, I think, till digital twin.
Not a problem. I can just repeat that. So yeah. So what we mean by a digital twin, I mean, it's an endless story, obviously, to get to being a complete digital twin, as we try and ensure that more and more of our operations to more and more of our actions are mapped, right? So that somebody who's taking decisions somewhere else remotely, has clear clarity of where things are stuck or how things are moving, or what things need to be.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, so digital twin is basically just a simulation of your actual process.
Yes. Eventually what
you're doing it virtually, that's all, rather than doing it physically.
Yes. Right now we are doing a lot of process intelligence, and everybody is trying to get this 360-degree, visibility on their supply chains. But essentially, when they finish all that and that gets enriched and that's very representative of how they do business, then you have the enterprise digital twin.
So Ajay, the voice is breaking, so I really don't know what's the problem. So I am not sure.
Yes. Let me just check it. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's much better.
I'm not sure. Sorry. Yeah, let's get to the end of this.
Yeah.
So process intel, like I said, is basically everybody's trying to invest heavily in trying to get, there are a lot of these tools called Celonis, to a bunch of them. And again, it's not necessary that you have to do any tool, but ultimately, how do you, are you able to, get a 360-degree view of your operations and how exactly they work, right? And like I said, it's not just from a transactional viewpoint, but an operational viewpoint, so that you can take these granular calls which can help improve your operations in that step-by-step and iterative manner. And as part of that entire thing, what is happening is from being where in analytics has to get really more actionable. Right? So you used to be in a place where analytics was first used to say, hey, what happened? Right? So that we can at least take a call what to do. Then people start asking, hey, why did it happen? Right? Like, what can you tell me? What are the factors that went into it? Right? Now we are moving to the, where we are heavily needing to invest in predictive analytics, right? Saying, hey, how is this going to play out? If I actually increase, my stock by, or if I have to double my inventory for the sale time, how is it going to impact my operations or my HR function or a lot of other things, right? This is something that you need to know. Only then you can say that, hey, let's go hire another 4,000 guys, right? for the sales season, right? And not just that, soon you will have to be even people have started needing to answer, or because the scale and size of investments have become so high that you, in a lot of cases, you will have to answer how can we make it happen exactly backed by data, right? When we say
Ajay,
that,
Ajay, so the voice is breaking. I think the slides are also over. So I really don't know. Like, can we like pause here? Because the
not a
is
problem.
it not breaking for if it's not breaking for everyone, then it's fine.
Yeah, guys, let me know. Is it breaking for you guys?
No, somebody's saying it's not breaking for Aditi.
Because my
Then we
internet.
can continue. Then we can continue.
We'll wrap it up quickly so that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically, yeah, so that now that you have a clear understanding of what's happening to process intelligence, and as well as you can give actionable, strategies and data-driven roadmaps to how people can make things happen, is what I think in a lot of places for a lot of heavy initiatives that will need to be done, right? And and something this is, for example, where this is another player, or this is a global FMCG player, where, for example, they have 5,000 freelancers and 3 lakh contingent workers, right? And handling them. This is a large FMCG company with a massive operations, right? And luckily they, got this in place and action. Otherwise, right now would have been a mess trying to handle and sort all of this out, right? And so yeah, so that's the kind of thing that, for example, right now, even something like this, which for that company is a one small piece, right, but is a significantly big thing, right, and which is critical to doing how business is going forward. We've actually helped them to actually ensure that there are very clear defined KPIs and metrics, right? The data is coming and being put in the right way, and those metrics are flowing back to even your HR teams, because otherwise, you cannot tell that team and say, hey, let's go hire 20,000 freelancers in the next 6 months. How will they handle it, right? And if they handle it and you start investing, how will you know it's working, right? So that's the kind of reason why even, something which is what you might consider, hey, this is one of the, not the most important thing that we do, needs right now, it's good to have it in a, complete visibility and of with the process and the control over it, right? So yeah, again, something like this is again, I'm sure some of it you guys would have been doing, right? Like, for example, ability to, this is something that we used to do, this is basic market basket analysis, right? For this, they were actually able to use this to actually, like I said, how to, stock the entry shelves, right? And this is what they take a look at and then stock the shelves, right? And this has clearly increase their throughput in terms of how much is stocked and how much is bought, right? A lot of their, because each, they have lanes for each of these different sports, right? And there are managers who are handling each of these lanes, and they're responsible for those sports, right? And by using these market basket analysis, they've actually, these are store executives who don't do laptop work, right? They are so, but they have also been able to use this and actually stock in the right way, and all of them have, like, a lot of them have seen much greater improvements in for the store, the for the lane conversions and their revenue goals,
Can we
right?
zoom into the metrics? It looks good.
1 second.
So market basket is like which products people buy together.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I think here we have not put the actual one, we've just put a dummy one, but
Yeah, yeah, that's perfectly fine. I just want to see how it looks so that people can also get
yeah,
an
so
idea. Yeah. Because it's somewhat different also. It's nice. The first pie chart. Okay. Yeah, I mean I saw it.
So you can, like you said, we can choose for your various this thing, right? So here, for example, this dashboard is to understand what is bought together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even something as simple as that, if you have very clear this thing, a lot of your distributed users will be able to take a few actionable, I mean, data-driven actions which can actually save you
Yeah.
some, a lot of money and time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing, guys. I would, if do we have some time, I would love to hear your thoughts, questions, and comments. I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably more experience in this, or probably know more about some of these specific things that we are talking about today. Right? I would love to hear some thoughts.
So, I mean, if anybody has a question, they can directly ask or they can write in chat. It's up to
Yeah,
them.
sure. I would love to hear back. I think my LinkedIn profile should have been shared.
Yeah, I will be sharing it, Ajay. Once this recording is completed, I will be sharing the LinkedIn ID on the YouTube.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, okay, I mean, if right now anybody has a question, they can ask. Otherwise, we will be putting up this session recording on our YouTube channel of IM Community. And please feel free to, reach out either in the comment section or you can even directly reach out to Ajay. His LinkedIn ID will be also mentioned. So I think it was a very, very informative session. I really liked the dashboards a lot. That was a very, big learning for us, all of us, because I think that is what, like you said, right? How do you tell the story about the data? That is a skill which matters a lot. And also we got to know that e-commerce and retail, even though they are quite similar, but they have reacted very differently to after COVID, and which exposes that retail is not as data friendly, at least yet, as e-commerce is, and it will also have to ramp up and probably make analytics its core function in the coming future. So thanks a lot, Ajay, for your time. It was a really informative session. And thanks everyone else too for your time. So that's all. I don't have anything else. Okay, so I think we will wrap up this meeting. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot for taking this initiative.
Yeah. Thanks for your time. Okay,
Guys, thanks
bye-bye.
for joining in. Please feel free to comment and reach out. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Bye.